You're listening to BBC Sounds.
Welcome to the Eye on Wales podcast. You can listen to the programme live on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 on BBC Radio Wales.
For walks? You go for walks, Em? You go for walks?
I'm one of the 1 in 4 adults in the United Kingdom who own a dog. For me, like most people, man's best friend offers companionship and unconditional love. But for others, a dog means something else. Easy money, a target to be stolen.
The instant reaction is to panic. You just start running and shouting and calling, and you still got that nasty feeling thinking somebody has taken him, and I felt so devastated to think that I'd failed. It was just total failure as a pet owner.
Police figures suggest that across Wales and England, 5 dogs a day are stolen from family homes, working farms and local parks. But the real total is likely to be much higher. And while those official figures are on the rise, up 20% over the last 4 years, another stat is on the slide.
Just looking at last year alone, 1% of all the dog theft crime cases investigated resulted in a charge. So, people aren't being convicted for this crime. Pet theft and dog theft is seen as a low-risk, high-reward crime.
Come on, where's your lead? Where's the lead? There's the lead. Good girl. Come on then.
Given those statistics, should I be rethinking my occasional habit of leaving my dog tied up outside the shop when I pop in for a loaf of bread or a pint of milk? The answer, it seems, is yes, I should.
The golden rule is treat your dog like you would a 2-year-old. You would not leave your 2-year-old outside a shop. You would not leave your 2-year-old unattended in a garden. And you wouldn't take your 2-year-old or leave your 2-year-old in the back of a car. So that's the golden rule. They're vulnerable as that.
Where are we going then? Where are we going?
I'm Oliver Hydes, presenter of Eye on Wales and owner of an excitable spaniel called Emmy. In this week's programme, I speak to victims of dog crime and to those who work to reunite parted pets and owners. And I hear calls for a change in the law to ensure the police and courts take pet theft more seriously.
Come on then. Come on then.
Pizza! Yeah. Bella!
Meet Bella, the golden retriever.
Good girl, get it.
Bella's the undisputed star of owner Merlin Blockley's home videos recording their life on an organic family farm near Llanidloes in mid-Wales.
Run! Don't go too far! Don't want to lose you. Come on, Bella, out!
3 weeks ago, Bella went missing, leaving Merlin and his mother Fran bereft.
Bella is Merlin's dog. She's a 4-year-old golden retriever and she's beautiful. And 4 years ago we got her as a puppy when Merlin was recovering from cancer. She was a little project for Merlin to train, and he's made a wonderful job of that. She's his constant companion. She was his constant companion.
Merlin, who's 28 years old, has cerebral palsy. In the 4 years he's owned Bella, the pair have struck up a strong bond.
I really love her and I miss her now, and she was kind of like my own child, really. I moved house a few years ago, and I bring her back every night from the farm, and all my housemates love her, and yeah, it's kind of lonely without a dog in my house now. So all my housemates saying every day, they're saying, any news from Bella? And they're really upset and hope she gets back soon.
When Bella first went missing, Fran and Merlin weren't too concerned as they thought they knew where she might be.
We weren't that worried because Merlin had some neighbours that had taken Bella into their caravan for the night occasionally. We had asked that to stop, but we did assume that that's probably where she was again. Thought, well, she's probably okay there. We will just go and ask though for her to come back.
So you went to ask, and what happened?
So we went to ask. Well, Merlin went to ask, didn't you? You went to ask, and there was no answer, was there, from them? And then you had a word with the landlord, didn't you?
Yeah.
You had a word with the landlord, and he went to check with them. Did you tell them that they'd gone away for a couple of days and they would be back?
Yeah, the landlord said they'd gone away for 3 days and they'd be back on Monday, but they didn't. And he went to check the caravan and everything was gone.
Merlin and Fran's fear was that Bella had gone with them. They contacted the police and were given a crime reference number. Dr. Daniel Allen is an animal geographer from Keele University. He's researched the number of dog thefts recorded by the police over the last 4 years.
Well, the scale in England and Wales together is it's pretty big, really. In terms of numbers, say 2015, there's 1,545 dog theft crimes reported to the police. 2018, 1,849. So in terms of numbers, relatively high. In terms of increasing, that's about a 20% increase in dog theft crimes in those 4 years.
But those are only the thefts that are reported to the police, aren't they? So
that's right.
Might the true figure be higher than that?
Well, that's the thing. I've been working with the Stolen Missing Pets Alliance and DogLost, and in terms of the number of reports they get, it's much, much higher. So in terms of the actual, crime reference number, it's only really scratching the surface.
How many people even get charged with a crime?
Charges for the crime is quite shocking statistics, actually. In 2015, 64 people were charged. In 2018, 20 people were charged. So it was a 70% reduction in charges. And just looking at last year alone, 1% of all the dog theft crime cases investigated resulted in a charge. So, people aren't being convicted for this crime.
What sort of sentence are you likely to get if you are convicted of stealing someone's dog?
Well, if you do get a sentence, if you do get charged, the likelihood is you're going to get a fine. You might get a few weeks in prison, maybe, but generally there's no prison time. It's generally a fine. It might be community service. Yeah, it's very minimal sentencing which is in place at the moment.
I've got a security camera placed there.
One case that did get to court recently saw a delivery driver sentenced to 150 hours of unpaid community service after he stole a dog while on his rounds.
We have one on the side of there, so as you can see the steps.
Teresa Heron from Blackwood in the Gwent Valleys has taken steps to secure her home against a similar opportunistic theft.
This one in the back covers all the garden and the perimeter fence.
But it took the stealing of her beloved pug Henry to wake Teresa up to the reality of pet theft.
I was visiting my sister in Crickhowell on the 27th of June 2018, and I took my 2 dogs there to visit, and they were in the garden quite happily playing while we were having a cup of coffee in the kitchen. 20 minutes later I popped out to check to see if they were all right, and Henry had gone. We looked around in case he had gone into one of the kennels or the chicken shed, and there was no sign of him. We checked the perimeter of the garden, and what we noticed was where the privet edge was surrounding it had been pushed down as if somebody had leaned over to pick him up, and Henry, being such a friendly dog, would have approached somebody if they had enticed him, because he was an absolute darling.
So your feeling is that someone had got around the back of the garden and...
We immediately checked CCTV, and there was a vehicle which had approached the perimeter fence, but because of the time of the year in June, all the trees and foliage had grown, so it was very difficult to see who was in the vehicle and where they had gone. We did report their sighting to the police, and we checked all the areas, and we feared he was stolen.
I'm a dog owner, and I can probably only begin to imagine what that moment is like where you look out of the window and the dog is gone. It's happened to me once or twice, but then the dog is around the corner, the dog is somewhere. What's it like in that immediate moment where you realise that the dog has gone?
I think the only for me is it was like being in a void. I thought, what do I do? Where do we go? Who do we speak to? Because we just don't know. There was the unknown. Did he fall? Did he get out? Was he taken? The instant reaction is to panic, and you just start running and shouting and calling, and you still got that nasty feeling thinking somebody has taken him. And I felt so devastated to think that I'd failed. It was just total failure as a pet owner. To be honest, before that I thought with the increase in dog thefts, because we were quite good at supervising them, it would never happen to us. But it caught us, and it did, and we was devastated as a family, the whole family.
After contacting the police, Teresa turned to the internet for more help to get Henry back. In recent years, websites have sprung up with the aim of reuniting missing pets with their owners. Jayne Hayes set up DogLost after she realised how little help was out there when her French bulldog was stolen 15 years ago.
Hello.
Hello, Jayne.
Yes.
Oliver Hyde, BBC
Hi,
Radio
nice
Wales.
to meet
Lovely to meet you. DogLost now has 120,000 followers, and Jayne has had to sell her house and move in with her mother in Newport to keep the site going.
It hasn't been too busy so far today, so we've only got 2 dogs in as yet. But usually by the end of the day, I would expect it to be up to 30. What we do, that people come to us, they register their dogs online. We then instantly create a poster for them. When we've got the poster up and running, we can then press a button and we can alert local dog owners in that postcode and surrounding ones. For instance, this one's just come in from Monmouthshire, MP26. As soon as the photo comes on, we can press a button and we can alert approximately 300 people in that area. We then ask them to share on social media. And you can imagine that if everyone's got sort of 500 friends, they're sharing and then the other people are sharing, it gets it a huge coverage within minutes in that immediate postcode. With the result that sometimes within minutes of sending these alerts out, we'll have a phone call saying, my neighbour turned up with that dog yesterday, he was in his garden. Other dog owners will tell on their neighbours, they will tell on their family because they know how they would feel.
So if I look through the front page here of, well, let's just say today's date, 2 in so far. If I look at yesterday, there are, about a dozen reports
Those
yesterday?
Those ones that are still missing, we do reunite the majority of them. So although there's only 12 showing as still missing, that means that the other 18 have already been reunited.
And looking at the breeds as well, Border Collie, Jack Russell Terrier, Collie Cross, Cockapoo, Staffordshire Bull Terrier, German Shepherd Dog, Chihuahua, Lurcher, all sorts, the whole spectrum of dogs that happen. Do you find that there are some breeds that are stolen more than others?
Oh, absolutely. The number one stolen dogs at the moment are Cocker Spaniels, Labrador, working Labradors, and now French Bulldogs. And that is because celebrities are parading around with them and there's a market there. The teenager girls want them. They're not going to question where they came from. If they can get one on Gumtree, they're going to get one.
So this theft here then, it's been reported to the police. How do the police approach crimes like this? How do you find they respond?
They're responding better now than they used to. They used to just classify dogs as missing. They are now giving out crime reference numbers. But again, it's hard to have the full spectrum of how many dogs have gone missing, simply because it's, at the moment, it's either logged under theft from property or theft from vehicle. Very few forces will separate dog theft. So even the ones that give you figures, you'll find that is just the tip of the iceberg. That's one thing. But even though they arrest people, the sentencing is pitiful. Your dog, a theft of your dog is treated the same as a theft of a mobile phone. Now, for all the heartbreak a family goes through, that is terrible.
Currently, there are more than 40 dogs listed as stolen in Wales on the DogLost website. Owners need to have that crime reference number to post their pet as stolen, and that can be hard to get where there's no evidence of a crime. Teresa Heron, though, did have plenty of evidence that Henry had been stolen rather than strayed, but was frustrated by the way the police handled her case.
Each time we went with new evidence and we had messages from people which we showing them, we were very, very honest and open about all the messages I had. They could see where they came from. They would record it and then that would be the end of it. And there was never any action. They never visited the premises. We had such credible information. We had 2 addresses and they never went there.
Have you considered offering a reward?
I did. Well, I didn't, to be honest. It's a very difficult thing because we were told maybe you should offer a substantial reward and that would draw them out of the, wherever they hide in. But my personal opinion of that is if I give a reward and the person who'd stolen the dog, I brought the dog back and claimed the reward, I'm also paying for crime. And 1, I haven't got the money, and 2, I'm not going to reward crime. I know it would offend some people, but I had to stick to my principle.
We spoke to somebody else who said sometimes the attitude of the police is, well, it's only a dog. Was that the sense that you got?
Yeah. At the one time, 2 officers came to our house to do a statement, and the one officer said, with the greatest respect, it is only a dog. And I said, well, you clearly going to understand him what it feels like, and maybe you're the wrong person to be doing this interview with us.
So much more than just a dog. Member of the family's gone.
Well, they're important because they are a long-term friend, and they do become a member of your family, and they are so important to people's well-being.
Pedigree dogs like Henry the Pug are particularly attractive to thieves as they can command high prices, several hundred if not £1,000, especially if the breed is in demand. Keele University's Dr. Daniel Allen says if pet theft is not a priority for the police, then it's the fault of the system, not of individual police officers or forces.
They take it very seriously. It's just a case that, in terms of time and resources, there's only so much that can be given for these types of thefts. They're not seen as sentient living beings. They're seen as objects which are stolen. And that's how the time and resources can be allocated. So until there's some kind of law change in terms of some kind of pet theft reform, there's not going to be any sort of additional time or resources because it's coming from above the police forces.
So what sort of change to the law would you like to see?
What we need is pet theft reform, and we can do this in two ways. The first way is by classifying pet theft as a specific crime in itself, and that's making revisions to the Theft Act, basically, Theft Act 1968, so we can classify dog theft or pet theft as a specific crime in itself. That means there'll be a standardisation of recording mechanisms from the police forces so it all becomes transparent. And also then we can change the sentencing guidelines so that the categories of sentencing are increased. So at the moment it's generally category 4 and 3. We can increase it to 3 and 2 or above 2, which means that people will get time in prison for actually doing this. It'll be taken seriously because at the moment what's happening is pet theft and dog theft is seen as a low risk, high reward crime. People aren't being arrested, they're not being convicted. So there's, by changing the law, by getting pet theft reform, increasing sentencing, whether it's a case of putting it through the Theft Act 1968, revising the sentencing guidelines so there's higher sentencing, or putting pet theft into the Animal Welfare Act to ensure that there's higher sentencing in relation to that, because pet theft is a form of cruelty.
Daniel Allen wants to see the law changed to reflect the toll that pet theft takes on both animals and owners. Being without Bella certainly left its mark on the Blockley family. Merlin says he's been different in the fortnight since Bella went away.
Very subdued, very depressed, very low. And Merlin's had a lot of struggles, haven't you? Because you've got cerebral palsy, so it's life has been a little bit lonely and a bit of a struggle. And this dog did a lot to fill that gap.
What have you been able to do then in terms of trying to pursue this? You've been to the police, presumably.
We've been to the police and they said that they can track the car, but that's all they can do. They're not willing to put on any trackers onto the phones or anything because we do have quite a lot of details about them, but actually there's not a lot we're allowed to do. It's the local response has been amazing because everybody knows Merlin, everybody knows Bella, and they've given us lots of information. Yeah, so much help we've had.
That help was readily apparent in the nearby town of Rhyadr, where virtually every shop window displayed a poster of Bella. In many cases, posters and social media appeals through sites like DogLost do the trick and reunite animal and owner. But if that doesn't work, there are a growing number of pet detectives who, at a price, can be called in to add a professional dimension.
For the search team specifically, it's from about like £1,200. Some of the costs are covered by insurance.
This is Andrea Penny, a member of the missing pet search teams that can be scrambled by a call to the company Animal Search UK.
They're fully uniformed. We conduct door-to-door inquiries. We've also got a marked patrol car. Even that, just driving around within the local area, can raise awareness that there's a pet missing. We use heat-sensitive cameras, and we use cameras that are manoeuvrable, so they can go down rabbit holes. So if it's like a very small dog or a very small cat, then we can use our camera to go down the rabbit holes in order to find evidence of the animal, or actually in fact find the animal.
I have a dog, and I think I do my best. I do my very best. It's occurred to me at times that she might be at risk of being stolen. What do people like me need to look out for? What are the techniques that are used to steal dogs?
They do a thing called clip and run, which is, so say you're taking your dog out for a walk and you just turn around for one moment, and they've been keeping an eye on you because it's a specific dog that they want. You turn your back for one moment, they can get a lead, clip it onto the dog's collar, and then just run away with the dog. And obviously most dogs are pretty good dogs, so they will just kind of follow the people that they've clipped the lead to. People need to kind of realise that people may be after their specific dog. So French Bulldogs, for example, are very big on the trend at the moment, and they're very expensive. So people will be willing to pay less and not ask questions about where the animal comes from. So stepping up the security in your home, so maybe like even fake security cameras, which are so cheap, you can buy those, and people will be less inclined to steal the dog. Getting higher fences or making sure that the perimeters around your house are secure would massively help.
Teresa Heron has learnt that lesson the hard way. After her pug Henry was taken, she was given an address where he might be, and taking matters into her own hands, she went and knocked the door. She found plenty of other dogs, but not Henry, who she suspects had been moved on. Since then, the trail has gone cold, but Teresa is not giving up hope.
In my imagination, in the nice world, someone will knock the door and say, "We've got your dog." You probably forgot us because it's such quite a time, but you don't know. Hopefully that will happen. But we did have a bit of a panic week before last. There was a dog found in Scotland. We analysed the photograph and we were 99.9% sure it was Henry. We messaged the persons who found him. They had taken him to the vets and they scanned him and the chip showed another owner. I wasn't happy with that because I know chips can get lost in a body and, they may have re-chipped him to somebody else. So I did contact the vet and they did actually reassure me that this was a genuine case of the dog had gone wandering and the owners had provided enough evidence to support that they were the owners. So that was good enough for me.
So what happens now? Do you think that's it?
Oh, no, it's not. No, we'll carry on. I do believe he's safe and he's out there somewhere. I hope that whoever took him had sold him on to somebody who was kind. He is microchipped. We have got a crime number for him and we will carry on advertising and pursuing to find him because he will come back one day.
Teresa's hope that Henry will be returned rests on the fact that he's microchipped with a unique 15-digit number. It's now a legal requirement for every dog to be chipped and registered within 8 weeks of their birth. Otherwise, the owner risks a hefty fine. Owners are then expected to keep those records updated and can flag their pet as lost with their chosen database. But what happens then? Marek Mamcho is the founder of the company Pet Scanner.
In the UK, there's 13 separate databases, of which us, Pet Scanner, are one of them. The databases are all linked together and the microchip numbers are cross-checked across the databases. But unfortunately, at the moment, the databases don't communicate the lost status between them. So if you register your dog as lost in the database your pet may be registered with, and someone checks that microchip number on a different database, the checking person won't find out if the dog's actually lost.
And presumably it would also help hugely, wouldn't it, if vets routinely scanned pets or animals that they're seeing for the first time?
Yes, but the problem is that when the vet then goes to check the microchip number, because the databases aren't sharing the lost status between each of them, the vet would need to check on 13 separate databases to check the lost status. We're trying to get DEFRA to instruct the other databases to actually share the lost status between all of us databases, so that whichever database the vet may check or the public may check a microchip number on, they can find out if a pet's been lost or stolen. Currently, there is no way in the UK for a member of the public at the point where they're going to buy a puppy or a dog or even a cat to check the status of the microchip number that they're buying, the pet that they're buying, which seems crazy. You would think in this era where everything's networked together that there should be a way, but this link between the databases is preventing that from happening.
If these changes were made, what difference do you think it would make to the prevalence of dog theft?
I think it would massively reduce it. The reason being is that people routinely could take a super low cost microchip scanner, which you can get now for as low as £9.99. You could take it with you when you're buying a dog and check the background on the dog straight away and find out if it's a lost dog. So the people that are stealing these puppies would have a much higher chance of being caught because of the chance of them being scanned when someone comes to buy them.
As with the pet theft reforms that Dr. Daniel Allen would like to see, changes to the way that microchip databases work don't appear to be imminent. Given that, what advice does Jayne Hayes of DogLost have for owners like me?
The golden rule is treat your dog like you would a 2-year-old. You would not leave your 2-year-old outside a shop. You would not leave your 2-year-old unattended in a garden. And you wouldn't take your 2-year-old or leave your 2-year-old in the back of a car. So that's the golden rule. They're as vulnerable as that. I mean, imagine if you left your handbag outside a shop, you wouldn't expect it to be there when you come out. But you're leaving a dog which is worth a lot more than that outside. And unfortunately, there are people out there, opportunists, who will just walk away with it.
I don't want to get around being suspicious of everybody and everybody that comes over to pet the dog. I don't want to be like that. But there are circumstances, I guess, where you have to be suspicious.
Yes, most people are just genuinely interested in the dog. But when someone approaches you, oh, has it had puppies or something like that, I'd be very suspicious. Why do they want this information about your dog? If you've been stopped by someone that is taking too much interest in your dog, there is your route back. Do not go back to the house. Get a friend to pick you up. You don't want that person to know where you live. But you might have noticed when you're looking through today's list, it's the 5th anniversary of 2 dogs, and that owner is still in touch with us every week. Every similar dog she goes to see.
Oh, these are, Tinker and Hemp in the northeast.
Yeah. One's a Terrier Cross, one's a Patterdale Cross. So anything that comes in as a found, which is a Terrier Cross or a Patterdale Cross, she will go on and she will check. If they don't have a picture, she will drive there. She is that desperate to find what's happened to them.
Has a huge impact on people's lives then, doesn't it? If someone's been that dedicated for 5 years to recovering their dogs.
It takes over your life, yes. It absolutely does.
It's taken over your life, hasn't it?
Oh, it has, yes. I don't have dogs anymore. I just don't have the time for them. I had to sell my house and move back to Wales and live with my mother. But, you can't stop something when it works.
And something also worked to deliver a happy ending for Fran and Merlin Blockley. Earlier this week, Bella reappeared, as suddenly and as mysteriously as she disappeared.
Well, this morning, Kevin and I were in the car. Before 6 a.m, we were heading down to Devon to follow up a few leads on our lost dog. We'd only gone about half a mile, and she was walking towards us along the road, walking back towards the farm. So, an extraordinary moment. I couldn't quite believe it when I saw her. It's Bella. and there she was. So we picked her up and brought her back to the farm. We thought it'd make a nice surprise for Merlin. So we hid her for an hour until he came down after breakfast to give him a nice surprise.
I got down to the farm and a Bella just came out of the blue. Yeah, it's amazing. I felt really happy and chuffed and amazed that she's back. I haven't slept for 2 weeks and so upset, and now I'm happy. I feel like the happiest man on the planet.
Thanks for listening to the Eye on Wales podcast.